Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. Got a fantastic crew of leaders. We've got Mr. Scott Nicholson, who has just joined us, at the last minute. He had some big ideas, and I said, Scotty, come in and add to the party. What's up, buddy?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm sitting I'm sitting back seat in the car here. You guys are driving and riding shotgun, so I'm sitting back and you tell me I have some cool stuff on the first-time home buyer. Yeah,
well, I'm looking forward to hearing your ideas. Today's call, the two main guests are Kristin Messerli and Denise Donoghue. Denise texted me last minute. She said I had one of my buyers shift things around, and I really wanted to be at their signing. So we absolutely understand and respect Denise, and she'll be here in 10, 15 minutes. In the meantime, Kristin Messerli and I will hopefully entertain you with some edutainment. What's up, Kristin?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. It was great seeing you in Seattle last week, where we thought we invented edutainment, the term, right? Like, didn't we? We're like doing it live. We're like, yeah, that's a new thing.
Yeah, everyone saw us come up with this brand new idea.
And then I Googled it, and I'm like, oh. Although when you Google it, it's not exactly what we had in mind. Like my definition of edutainment for a mortgage and real estate professional is different than what Google says.
Yeah.
And I think we have a better idea than Google in this case.
Me too. I was thinking, everything starts as something else and then becomes every big movement starts like this. So I think we're good.
Yeah. So we're gonna redefine edutainment right now. Yes. So Kristin, this call is about two things. It's about first-time home buyers and how do we get to them before realtors, and how do we get them, when they start thinking about buying. And for any realtor listening to this, it's not like we want to beat you because we want to win the race and go, ha, 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 we're better. We want to get there because that makes us more valuable to you. It makes us more valuable to the real estate agent. And as a referral-based local mortgage professional, it gives us new incremental opportunities that we wouldn't otherwise have had. Most local referral-based mortgage professionals live off the referrals of their past customer database and their partners. And we think that you need to get to the consumer first. So why don't you just start by sharing any stats, facts, and just your perspective on just how big the opportunity is?
Well, first of all, I don't think that loan officers getting to the consumer first is necessarily just chasing after the same consumer. I think there are so many millennials and first-time homebuyers out there that don't know that they could enter the marketplace. Like they don't know that they could qualify or that home buying is something within reach for them. My team and I have been interviewing millennials across the country pretty steadily for the last year, and of course been doing this for a while, but really lately we've been hearing a lot of people say that they just didn't know that was even something in their near future. So but I think overall, right now we see that first-time homebuyers, 68% of first-time homebuyers are millennials, and we have a huge amount of growth in multicultural segments and single women buyers. So I think we also want to think about how are today's buyers going to resonate with your content and with your information and your message, which is something that we can talk about when we get to the edutainment conversation. But I don't know if you want to introduce. I saw Denise just hop on here. So hi, Denise.
Yeah. Hey, Denise. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I just told everybody you were going to be a little late because you were attending the signing of one of your clients.
Yes, my agent couldn't be there, so I said, okay, I will be there. But I thought I would be on time, but I was 2 minutes late. So glad I could be here.
Yeah, it's all good. So we were opening the conversation with just like this call is about consumer first, getting to the home buyer before, and first time home buyers, focusing on that segment. And Kristin brought up a really good point that it's not like we're even getting to the same buyer that our realtor would refer us to, because there's so much lack of information and education that first time home buyers have that many of them don't even know that they can achieve homeownership, or they don't know they could do it now. So it's almost like our job is to create demand and education at the tip of the spear. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just all about awareness, because there is a mindset, they learned from their parents or their grandparents. And unfortunately, that mindset is that you still need 20% down and perfect credit. And, we're also dealing with millennials that staying, committing to something that appears to be a 30-year term, for example, is scary to them. That's very long term and overwhelming to them. So, a lot of what we have to do to position ourselves to get in front of more people is to be an educator. And I don't just mean popping on social media and saying, look at me, I'm a mortgage banker, I can help you buy a home. That does not resonate to anybody, I would say. You've got to get down in the nitty gritty, and I would say almost instill education, but you're conquering the fear of what's potentially holding them back, which is likely credit or down payment. And so a lot of your social media, like the post I did, I think it was yesterday, the day before, was me running an analysis on just showing them the numbers with the tools that you provide us on the pain of waiting a year to buy, or renting for 5 years versus owning for 4 years, because the talk and the chatter is that owning is better. But these millennials are smart, and their BS thermometer is a lot better than what ours and our parents and our grandparents were, in part because of how marketing has become. And so they don't just want to hear it, they want to see it. They want to see the numbers, they want to see the proof. And so we've got to be able to deliver that to them. And that's where you'll get them to get off the couch and apply or come meet with you, versus, just saying, look at me, I'm a mortgage banker, I can help you buy a home, or get your dog in this yard. You know what I mean? You've got to be more than that.
I love that. Now, Denise, one thing I'd love to hear from your thoughts, and then Kristin, I'd love to have you weigh in, is this is a big opportunity. I mean, you closed was it over 50 loans last month? Is that right?
Yeah. And
so you're killing it.
Is my hair white? Because I feel like I might be pulling my hair out. The next video, I might be bald, but
yeah.
We are so blessed to be in an industry that we are at the time that we are. I know Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about this, where some of our competitors and even real estate agents, they might complain that technology is a threat, or, they kind of look at that negative perspective side of things. Whereas on the flip side, we could say, look at all of this technology that allows us to do more, educate more, show the numbers. I mean, in the old days, you used to have to get an old school amortization calculator and, try to figure out what the interest only payment was, and look at an amortization chart and show people the numbers. Now we can do it in a matter of minutes to show people how you can accumulate true wealth, a retirement plan. You can live a life maybe differently than how your parents lived, by just learning some of these tools, and how great that we can enter their lives at their first home purchase to educate them on this. I wish the loan officer that helped me buy my first home when I wasn't in mortgages yet didn't stereotype me, and instead educated and informed me. And who knows where I would have been if I would have had that in my life. Because something that's passionate to me is there is a lack of financial awareness and knowledge from our schools, our communities, our colleges. They don't teach you that life skill. And so as a mortgage advisor, we can really make an impact on these people's lives.
Yeah, and it's a big opportunity. Kristin, what is the first-time home buyer opportunity, at least from any stats or facts you have? Like, just how big of an opportunity is it?
Well, let me see here. Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard the stat that 1 in 3 home purchases are made by millennials. And, but, the big thing that surprises me is, and I know we've heard that homeownership has declined in young adults. That's decreased significantly due to home prices and things like that, but student loan debt. But I do think the number one thing that Denise was hitting on here was the lack of education. We realized that in those interviews I was talking about, and talking to millennials and first-time homebuyer range kind of consumers, so many people that even had really high levels of education or high income, high credit scores, things like that, they still did not have any idea that homeownership was within reach for them. And so like Denise had mentioned, some of the top myths that we found about first-time homebuyers, or from first-time homebuyers, no surprise, the 20% down payment was number one, but also finding out that there's a big fear around the financial crisis happening again, and a huge fear that someone is selling them on something that's not good for them. So tons of people would say that, like, people within my network constantly are asking me questions about how to buy a home or whether that's a good idea for them. And I'm like, talk to a loan officer, like, let me connect you with someone. And it's really hard for people to feel like they can trust that whatever that person says to them is going to be valid, and that they're not just trying to make a sale. And so that's why I think being able to really show those that kind of presentation that's personalized is so important to fighting that kind of perception. And then also thinking about the long-term factor around buying a home, that kind of commitment, and self-employed income. So that was the other area that I think a lot of first-time homebuyers they think that they won't be able to qualify with any kind of alternative sources of income, and that there are options out there for them. So those are a few of I think, there's a huge opportunity with those that are already looking and thinking about buying a home, but there's so many more people that just don't have the education or information to feel ready to buy. Totally
agree. So Denise, how do you speak to that? And in your education, your market, how do you address that education? Like, what are some of the tactics and things that you're doing? I know some of it because we've talked about it in past interviews, but let's assume people didn't watch our last interview and just kind of unpack, here's everything I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Well, for me, I speak because of my upbringing, and I won't go into all of that, but we lived in our house for our whole life, and our house got foreclosed on when I was a senior in high school. And so I had a really bad taste in my mouth about home ownership. I'd never had any kind of rental properties or anything like that. I just didn't have a good taste in my mouth. And so when I meet with first-time home buyers, to Kristin's point, a lot of their fear is, are they being sold? And then the fear of the housing crash, kind of like what I had growing up, was I didn't want to put myself in a position where I was going to be house broke and lose my house and have all my stuff outside. So I think that the first and foremost, when you get somebody on the phone, you have to assess their needs, obviously. Maybe they have those fears, maybe they don't, but you've got to figure out where their fear is in the home buying process. And then just address it head on. It could be down payment, it could be job type, it could be income type. A lot of that I use by showing them the numbers and showing them things like, well, what's the opportunity cost? If you stay with what you're doing now, here's what your financial strategy will look like in the next 5 to 10 years. Or you could look at a direction of this part in 5 to 10 years. And I'd be curious to hear from Kristin too on a lot of the conversations I'm having with these millennials. It's actually really cool for me, but especially in our Denver branch that we have, a lot of them are thinking, how can I VRBO one of the rooms out? And how can I turn this into a money-making thing? And so that's been a really big change, I would say, Dave, this year. Is I don't have those kinds of conversations with, the baby boomers and the 40, 50, 60-year-olds. They don't think, how can I make money off of renting this room out? But these millennials do. They're like, if I go have a sabbatical in Europe for 3 months, can I rent this house out? What are their HOA policies? And that's just so cool that is just the difference in mindset when you're talking to a millennial and what they're used to being brought up with. And so again, that fear of maybe committing to a 30-year commitment doesn't mean you have to stay in that home for 30 years. It might mean you're in it for a year or two and then you turn it into a rental. And I think I saw on your channel, or on somebody you've had on your channel on their Facebook, they did a millennial, it might have been Kristin, a millennial home buying seminar. And I thought that was so cool because I know Dan does the beers and home buying. We do mortgages and mimosas. But when you throw in the millennial home buying, I've thrown that out to some of my real estate agents, and they're like, whoa, that's really cool. And some of it comes from that component of, let's be strategic with this asset and not maybe do what our parents and grandparents did where they lived in there for 30 years and didn't do much with it, but maybe we can make it an income stream. So I just think that's cool. I was curious if Kristin has run into any of those kinds of conversations where more and more millennials are wanting to like rent the houses out and do things like VRBO.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I've been hearing tons of that. And I actually automatically assume that that is in the conversation, but I forget that that is actually a pretty new development or recent development. But we did host a first-time homebuyer event recently where we brought in a bunch of people, like 40 millennials, and had a panel of a real estate agent, loan officer, MI person, and a title agent. And the title agent was talking about how she had one of her properties was, or she bought her home thinking about renting out a room on Airbnb, and tons of people were saying that's what I want to think about, is like, if I can buy my home now, how can I plan for that to be an income stream? And that really resonated so much with everyone. But also I have about four friends I can think of right now that are buying, and all of them are accounting for being able to Airbnb or VRBO a room as part of thinking about their housing budget. So especially in markets like LA and some of the really competitive markets, that becomes extremely helpful in thinking about your budget as well.
Hey, Kristin, real quick, if you could show a couple pictures of your millennial party, because I thought what you did was awesome. I would love to see more people in the mortgage coach community, get up close and personal with, their customers. So can you share your screen and maybe just kind of tell us what you did, and also tell us what were your takeaways from the event you did? We can see your screen, by the way. But if you're talking, I can't hear you.
There we go. Okay. So yeah, the event was really fun. It was kind of initially an experiment because, and really just trying to give education to a lot of people in our network that I knew were not receiving education. But the big thing about this was we wanted to make this a party, basically, like something that was accessible, where people would come, whether they felt like they were ready to buy a home right now or not. They knew that this was going to be something enjoyable and that they would learn. So this is Sarah and I, who works with me, but I'm going to start here to show you, like, all of our promotional information leading up to it was really focusing on this kind of just fun event. And so we have an evening with industry experts to kickstart your future as a homeowner. Eat, drink, get your questions answered. We'll break it down for you at Alchemy Supper Club, which is what we called this. But it was very accessible, we were all about the vibes. So everything was about how do we make this an enjoyable experience that people want to come attend and have fun with it, So like Denise said, having things like I was thinking about Dan's beers and home buying, and I love the mimosas thing, but those types of things make people feel like they're not going to immediately get sold to. They're going to have a comfortable, they're going to enjoy themselves and learn. And so making it approachable and accessible is really key. So we had, this is a picture of us kind of talking through this. We had a group of people that, like I said, I should have brought different photos, but about 40 people came for dinner. And I mean, you don't have to do a big dinner for these types of things, but Sarah is just an amazing cook, so we thought we'd do that. We had special cocktails and then just lots of time for people to network and actually talk to the panel. So we had this panel of individuals that, like I said, represented different parts of the home buying process, and had them speak for just a few minutes. We didn't overwhelm them with information, and then after that we had Q&A. And so it allowed people to ask some questions that they wanted answered, and then even beyond that, just kind of walk around and talk to those professionals as well. And people were saying, we have, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have a video that pulls some of the insights that people had, and it shares a lot of like people's, things that they were myths or things that they believed going into the event, which I think were really interesting and exactly what Denise and I have been talking about. But I'm trying to see where there might be pictures. Oh, well. Anyway, you can see some of the examples here, but also people were leaving the event talking about how they just didn't realize that this was something that was accessible to them right now, and that they really wanted to think about how they could take the next step to buying a home today rather than waiting like they'd planned on doing.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. By the way, that may be putting you on the spot, but any chance the mortgage coach community could get some of those slides?
Yeah,
I've already cool. So we'll post a link down below if you're watching this on YouTube. Link down below if you're watching this in Facebook. Link down below. Denise, any comments or questions for Kristin about that event?
I think it's brilliant. And I think the whole thing, that is what the video I saw, I think it came across which I don't know how because I'm in DFW, but I was like, that is just so cool. And you hit the nail on the head with the trendy vibe, especially in markets like where you're in and I'm in Dallas. That's what all of this is. I call it for the gram. It's like, unfortunately, that's the world we live in, where sometimes you'll get people, if the event looks so cool that they can dress up and take photos and at the end of the day, post it to the gram and tag you, or you've got your backdrop or you've got a logo. The reality is that these kids are motivated by being able to look and appear that there's someplace cool, but it's them still learn something. And I think that's the art that people struggle with, is how do you make mortgage education sexy? It's not the sexiest topic to do, and you can do it with cool things like your venue and playing the part, dressing the part, having cool cocktails. Like I see a lot of people, Dave, still doing their home buying seminars like in the classroom setting type, which, hey, if you're getting out there and you're doing it, I am not knocking it, because it is a lot of work. What Kristin did for that event, I know takes a lot of work, a lot of time and attention. So if you're getting out there and you are doing a classroom setting, I don't knock anybody for that. But the vibe that you bring to those millennials is what's going to create the drive there. And you just got to think, do it for the gram, but make your content sexy enough that they'll want to come and learn.
And
so I want to go ahead. Go, Kristin, play off that, and then I have a question for both.
Okay, I was just going to say that I think that people are, again, afraid that they're going to get sold to. So walking into a classroom setting does feel like you're walking into their territory, and you don't, I don't know, worst case scenario, if you're walking into a party or somewhere where you're getting mimosas, you're walking out of that with a mimosa, so it feels more comfortable and approachable. And also, I was speaking with someone from a major production company here in LA, and they were talking about how we're in the experience economy. We're in the experience age. And so everything, yes, is for the gram, but it's also about what experiences are you having today that are bringing meaning to your life. And so I think that's where, merging that experience, the visual component with the education is really important.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because one of the promises I made in the marketing of today's call is scroll stopping content. Because, let's face it, like when we did the testimonial, Denise, I don't know if you heard the first 30 minutes of last week's call when we announced the winner, and Brittany Hodak voted for you. You came in second, but she voted for you because it was the most scroll stopping testimonial submission. And so, I did vote for Josh, so sorry, but if you listen to it, you'll know why. I just thought the fact that he interviewed a couple, a buyer, and he had that conversation, I thought that was just important. So I shine a light on it. but let's talk about how do we create scroll stopping content? What are the things that you think about, Denise? Then maybe Kristin, you can add some of your thoughts to it.
I think it definitely has to be more of the emotional component of what buying a home means. And it's different for everybody. You know, maybe you bought a home to move to this school district so that your kids could be, you know, at that school district on that sporting team. Or maybe it's because you have a dog and you want them to run around in the backyard. But I think the scroll stopping content isn't the picture at the closing table holding the bottle of champagne saying, look at me, we just closed another home. That is not impacting or bringing out any kind of emotional string out of people. You want the message behind and the meaning behind what that it shows, that you're connecting with your audience, and maybe educating that they went from. I made a post the other day where we had our video cameras. People actually come to the closing table because we did a home buying seminar. I think it was June 6th, and by July 23rd. This older couple, Latanya and Gordon, they had never bought a home. They were probably in their mid-40s. And so from attending our seminar on June 6th, they were home buyers at the end of July. And that is so cool, capturing moments like that. And we had our camera crew there and they interviewed them, Dave, where it was like, what does this home purchase mean to you? And it's the husband said, it gives me like fulfillment. I feel like I did something, and it's like, that is so cool that somebody in their mid-40s can feel that way from something that we were able to provide them, because on that home buying seminar day they didn't think it was possible, and they were great clients. So you've got to connect that way. And I will say we've started this year implementing doing professional lifestyle photo shoots. We've done 2 this year where, you know, I'm on my phone at a coffee shop, or I'm with a staged client going over a mortgage analysis. And we've spent the money to do it, you know, with a professional photographer. We've done the green screen in the background, but like that was with a green screen in the background. But I'm not normally a professional photo type person, but photos do sell just like in real estate. And so they're different and they're eye-catching.
So real quick, so were these real balloons, by the way?
Yes, they were real balloons, except for the purple ones and the backdrop was imprinted.
Got it. So you got these purple ones imprinted. And how much do you think that photo shoot cost you? You know, how would you kind of budget would you put around that?
It was $300, and I got probably 60 photos. And you just have to plan it. That could be a whole nother video, but in front of that green screen, Dave, I have a picture of me holding a measuring tape that says, does your lender measure up? I had a vision of what I was going to use these photos for. I've got a picture with me with the Dallas Cowboys hat on a backwards chair, because football season's around the corner. I did a movie premiere where I rented out a movie theater, so I had me with the popcorn thing. You've got to, you know, if I'm paying for somebody to be there to take photos of me, then I want to be strategic. I just now started implementing the green screen because I had a white chair and a white table, and I had different outfits that I brought, and my marketing crew can put me in Paris. They can put me next to a wall with graffiti. It might be the same photo, but to the eye, people don't realize it. And I can interchange that photo for whatever I want.
Yeah, no, really good points. And guys, I mean, we are in the experience economy, the share economy, and at the end of the day, edutainment. Like, we're not going to be successful if there's not some level of entertainment we're providing. And we are mortgage professionals, and we need to educate. You know, I mean, this is a cool photo of Dan Keller meeting with a client. I think it was, you know, after one of their beers and loans. This is a real estate agent. These are some buyers. And, you know, by the way, with the right words and the right caption, this could be scroll stopping educational content. So guys, we are about halfway through this. I wanted to do a couple of things. One, you know, shine a light on getting to the consumer first, so that, one, we're creating demand. You know, we're creating incremental opportunities for ourselves and we're creating incremental opportunities for the realtors that we serve. I think it's an important strategy, and I think the case has been made. Let's get into some strategies. We've got Scott Nicholson on because when he saw me post this, he's like, Dave, I have 2 ideas that I want to make sure people know about, and he pitched me on it, and literally just going back and forth on, like he sent me a video, I sent him an audio. We really didn't even get on the call and prep. We just, video and audio back and forth on text, and he had these ideas. So Scott, why don't you share a couple of the ideas that you wanted to share for everyone? And then Denise, I'd love to get your impressions. And Denise, are you in a spot where you could pull up one of your mortgage coach rent versus own after Scott and just go through how you show people the numbers? Okay. And by the way, you're on mute. And then Kristin, I want you to think of yourself as almost like my co-host for the second half of this call, where we'll together, ask Scott, Denise questions, and we'll make sure that the community knows how to show the numbers and how to provide valuable strategies in a way that's edutainment. Are you cool with that?
Love it.
Love it. So Scott Nicholson, you're up. What do you got, buddy?
I'm unmuted. So one, thank you, ladies. As a male, I think I need to hear that stuff, right? The male just dive in there. What do you mean? The numbers make sense. Buy. Why aren't you buying? So having that, you need a blend, so I thank you for that, the first part there. So one of the things that, when I saw this post intrigued me, I go, there's 2 things I work with first-time home buyers that are relative in the market. So our 2 biggest hurdles in dealing with first-time home buyers is affordability and availability, right? And so I'm going to use 2 things that are in my wheelhouse. I'm going to use renovation. I'm going to use the seller buy down. And so, and I'm going to deliver it to the heart of the millennial in delivering it. So think of where I need to be to get my wheelhouse in our profession is to get on video or get in front of people, a couple or an audience to help educate. That's wherever I can get in front of that, that's where I need to be to deliver the message. So 2 in particular we're going to deliver here, and I'm going to share my screen if I can, and I'm going to show you a couple things.
Okay. We see it.
Okay. So the first one up. I want everyone to pull their phone out. I want you to text that number right there, the 562-471-4513. The first one I'm going to deliver to the millennial. This is a yard sign. And so this could be a post on your social media. This could be in your open house. So I'm going to teach the millennial. So if you text that renovation to that number, it's going to come to my phone number. So one, I'm generating content out to the millennial, and I see you. Number text, you're calling me. So I'm going to deliver that. So here's what
don't call this number. Text this number, everybody.
Yeah, just text. So you can call it, but we're on the webinar. So here's what I delivered them. I'm going to show you the presentation. Here it is right here. So can you see my total cost?
I see it.
Okay, so here's what I did. And so now everyone who's texting renovation to that number, I'm delivering that total cost analysis video to them directly. And when they click it, it's me talking through it. Here's what I'm saying to them. Home style renovation, here's what we have. And so the issue we have is affordability and availability. And I say, wouldn't you like to buy the home that basically when you watch the weekend show with the husband and wife couple, I'm going to show you the loan that we can buy that house in the as-is condition and renovate it to what you like. So now we can go into that neighborhood that before you couldn't afford. So we're going to make it affordable. 2, we're going to make it your own. And then 3, going to the availability is a lot of people don't understand how to use renovation. And what it does is it opens up the selection process for all of inventory. You can buy that hoarder house and gut it and make it your own. Now you're in that neighborhood. Now you're in that school district. So what I show them is column 1, we can buy the 97 3% down home style at $400,000 acquisition for this. Column 2, in the negotiation process, we offered $350,000 with $5,000 as seller buy down, and I explained in the video, renovation loans are expensive, in particular to get a no-cost renovation loan. So what we do is we negotiate a seller buy down in there. In this case, it was 125 basis points, which is $5,000. And so we'll look at the exact, everything's exactly the same, column 1 to 2, but look at your cash to close. There's that $5,000, and what I did was I eliminated the discount points there. They're going to get their tax deduction, and the reason why is all renovation loans is a 7-month journey. Month 1 is buying the asset, renovating the asset for the 6 months. We get to the 6th payment. In month 7, I refi them, and what I've done in the 3rd column, I showed, because we did a decent job in negotiating the price point, because we did a decent job in getting a rental budget, look what I did. I took them to market rate. We saved $445 a month. I reinvested it, and I made the point in the video, look at the green column, principal paid in 8 years. About the time they're ready to move out, I gave them an additional $63,000 in equity by doing nothing. So we got them into a house. We made it affordable. We got them into a neighborhood. Now we're making it available. Now they can buy any asset they want normally. And so the second presentation I wanted to show you.
Hey, real quick, Scott, before you do that, Denise, any questions or commentary around this strategy?
I love it. A lot of the loan officers at our company are proposing the buy downs. I have not. I need to get more educated on them, but this is, this is just goes to your point where if you can actually show people the numbers like this, then it doesn't make it as confusing to just try to verbally discuss it. Because if you discuss this with somebody verbally, it's like their head just starts spinning and you lost them. But I feel like being able to use this and articulate it and showing them how you can buy and then refi, and you can do it all for them really easy and save them a boatload of money. You're showing them the numbers, which makes it a rational decision and not an emotional decision.
Yeah, and what I want to push everybody to do is now, how do we turn this into edutainment? Like, how do we create a headline, that maybe, I'm just going to be provocative. How would you, check it out how you can get the seller to pay for your renovation loan to buy a fixer-upper? There's got to be a, scroll-stopping, emotional headline that gets a first-time home buyer to go, what's that? And then when Denise, does her talk here in a minute, I've interviewed her, the way she'll create content, using her iPhone, walking through a TCA, it's edutainment, and so just, guys, think of what would be the headline. So Scott, you got 3 minutes for this one, because I've got more questions for Denise. Walk us through another strategy.
Here's your next one. Go ahead to the same number, text no PMI. And so what I did in this one, I actually recorded the video, sorry ladies, when you were speaking. So I went ahead and finished the video. So here's what we did in this one. So one of the biggest things, again, is affordability, right? Or they're going to be, they need a certain payment to be affordable, and or they're not allowed to go up. So I'm going to address both of those now. And so the first column is we're going to use a conventional loan, $450,000. That's your standard where you're going to get from everybody. These are your standard numbers from everybody across the country. Now next door, we're going to negotiate. We'll offer a fair and full price, in this one, $450,000. We're going to get $10,000 the seller buy down, and what we're going to do with it, we're going to go ahead and buy out of a single premium MI. And when we do that, we structure it. So look at column 2, $450,000, $427,000, same rate. Look at the payments, the same, but what I did was we saved $224,000. So we can either take the savings, which is reducing the ratios by 3% and 4%, same cash to close. I've addressed affordability right there. I've also reinvested that money. But if you look at the third column, here's where you get to another level. If you take a $490,000 price, do the same $10,000 seller buy down, it's actually $10,980 in this one. Look what I did. Look at my payment. It's exactly the same. It's $2,773, but look at, I've increased their buying power by $40,000 just by using that strategy. And I show them. So now when they text no PMI, which is, a millennial goes, mom and dad always taught me no PMI. There's a great way to buy without PMI. Column 2 and column 3 do not have PMI. We bought out with a seller buy down. One addressed affordability, which is column 2. Third column addressed, I want to buy more house for the same payment.
And get the seller to pay for it. And again,
Correct.
I'm sure there's some provocative headlines. Denise, any questions or color around this one?
No, I think I call it sex appeal, but especially for millennials, the no PMI, we do a lot of ads around that. In our market, sometimes the real estate agents, they don't like us to mention the seller paid. So I have to be a little vague with how we can do that, whether it's lender paid, we roll it in, or it's seller paid, just because then the expectation's set. So, you know, whatever market you're in, just forewarning, if you say that, some agents, you know, they always want to come out of the woodworks and make comments on that stuff. But no PMI is very, very scroll stopping, attractive social media content for millennials.
Love it. So Scott, give us 1 minute on the sellerbuydown.com and how anybody watching this can, you know, learn more from you and go to the next step with sellerbuydown.com.
Let me address Denise's point there. So I think you're right. And I think every agent has some exposure to seller paid and how it works. And I think where I've always succeeded when that has come up, I usually sit down with them and say, okay, let's look at how much impact you can. And what I usually say is just a really simple message. And let's say Denise is my agent. I go, Denise, understanding finances is critical because in this presentation, by you helping the buyer with $1 in a concession, in this case, the seller buy down, it's equivalent to $3 in price. So if you have a listing and the buyer comes in, let's say 30,000 under, and it's been sitting there days on market, I can help you, Denise, counter with 10,000 a seller buy down and have the same financial benefit to the buyer. And what I did for you, one, we sold your house, we got a good value for your farm. Number two, we made the seller 20,000 in net without giving the property away for 30. And so I think education to those agents is critical. And what the benefits it can help.
Roger that.
And so simple, the millennials want to know what it is, how does it work, what is a seller buy down? I've never heard of that before. And so in those text messages, I always have, if you want information, you know, text this, and they go, I have case studies on how we've done it, examples, I storytell through the site, I give them all the material and how it's going to help a buyer, a seller, all the FAQs, everything's built into it right there. So there's a lot of information they can read and research on this. And then my call to action on both those videos was to contact me so I can sit down and do a custom TCA based on your qualifications and your affordability.
Love it, guys. So you can stop sharing your screen, Scott. Thank you so much, brother. For anybody watching this, I mean, I think what Scott's doing with sellerbuydown.com is a super consumer first strategy because he's creating the demand. He's got a website. He is offering it exclusive to specific zip codes. If anybody in the mortgage coach community wants to consider being one of Scott's clients, how do they reach out to you, Scott, if they want to lock down a zip code of your platform? You're muted, Scott.
That would help. They can email me. They can hit me on Facebook. Just private message me is the best way. You can do it
What's
either
your email
way.
address?
Call me.
Email?
Just my full name, Scott D. Nicholson. Scott D. Nicholson @gmail.com.
All right, guys. So put a link down below, Scott. Thank you very much. Kristin, any questions, any color you have on this before we have Denise show how she goes through the numbers and share a couple marketing ideas?
Not really any questions. I think it's an amazing strategy and definitely scroll stopping. But I would really emphasize how important it is that everyone, whenever they're doing any kind of presentation or marketing, that they're really simplifying the message and simplifying the terms, and be careful not to use too much industry lingo. I think a lot of times we overestimate how much people do understand, or how much they're, what level of financial literacy they have. While millennials are very smart, very well educated for the most part, they still, across the board, a lot of people I know that are well educated, doing well, higher income, have no idea what PMI is. And so that might not, for them, that might not be a scroll stopping kind of thing, but talking about that they can get a personalized strategy to maximize their wealth, or something that talks about that personalized strategy. And then as you go through those presentations, just making sure that you're being very clear about what terms mean what, and making sure that they understand that they're not going to be seen as stupid for asking questions that are very basic, or clarifying some of those things.
Awesome. So Denise, if you have questions, feel free to ask, or commentary. And then if you could, show your screen and share the different ways, because I think one thing that's super cool is you're doing everything from, Facebook posts to Instagram stories, and you're showing people the numbers. So what are the different ways in which you're doing this? And then walk us through so people can get a feel for how you're creating edutainment, showing people the numbers.
Yes, so I've started to make it actually a thing where I try to do it at least once a week, where I do a Facebook Live and an Instagram Live video of going through the numbers like this. And it's always done with Mortgage Coach, and it could be a refinance analysis, or this rent versus own, which I'll talk about in just a second, or the interest rates, do you want a rate with points or not? And it's not necessarily to be scroll stopping as much as I want it to be brand identity, that I want people to associate me and the mortgage nerd with actually running numbers. Because again, people talk about it, but I want them to actually see it. So, I run one of these reports for every single one of my clients. And so I just started thinking to myself, that's great. I've got them in front of me and now they're seeing it, but I want to be able to educate the masses. And so I do believe in just creating scenarios. Sometimes it's real life scenarios. The one on Sunday night was a true refi scenario that I had prepared for a client. And once I was done, I thought this would be a great live. And I'll tell you, I was in my bed and my hair was in a ponytail. You don't have to be staged perfectly. Sometimes the authentic actually gets more attention. And so I just say that because it was real and it was from the moment. And actually, I was blown away by the savings. So that's what I have to say about that. Do you have anything to say, Dave, before I go into this rent versus own?
Well, I wanted to shine a light on the fact that, Denise is going through the numbers once a week. And did you hear that? I mean, she's the mortgage nerd. She's done this, and she still gets surprised. She just comes from things with this heart of curiosity, this humble that walk through the number. And I just think too many loan officers, we believe everything we think we know it all, and go through the numbers. Trust me, if you don't go through the numbers yourself, you're not going to be an expert. And Denise, I just love the way you roll. So tell us what we're looking at.
All right, so this is the rent versus own. This was my refi that I did. There was still some debate with the client, which I'm like, I can't even believe you're seeing these numbers that I am. But anyways, this was a rent versus own. I love doing rent versus own. I will do a rent versus own post multiple times in a week, and I do different ways. I show the numbers like this. I'll have staged commercial where it's attractive young couple going from being in a cramped apartment to playing with their dog in their backyard. So I say that because I have different forms and different channels that I'm doing this with. But the numbers is how I separate myself from the bulk of the loan officers in our community. This rent versus own was specific for a client that was kind of out in the country. They were paying $1,850 a month in their rent. and I was showing them, they were interested in a $250,000 purchase which was a 3% down. So the monthly payment, $1,850 versus $2,038, but we did talk about the no PMI option, which of course made this, if you take the $2,038 and you subtract out the $121 with getting the seller concession we did speak about, then that drops your payment actually cheaper than where you are from a rent standpoint. But what I like to really hit on is this chart here. And I tell people there's 3 ways that you can accumulate wealth in real estate. One, you've got the principal reduction that you make every single month, which is a form of forced savings. You've got the tax savings, and you've got the appreciation, which I'm going to break down for you right now. And so I pull this up and I say, if we were to fast forward you 5 years in your life and then look back, if you stayed what you're doing right now, then you would pay $117,000 in rent. And it's not doing anything for you. That rent payment goes to the landlord. You don't get anything back. In the owning scenario, the portion of your payment that goes towards principal that buys your, or that brings your loan amount down, would equate to about $19,000. So the portion of your payment that you're paying every single month, which is equivalent to what you're paying now, is about $19,000 at the end of 5 years. That's a lot of money, but that's not all. The second bucket is the tax benefit. So owning a home, one of the best reasons why is the tax deduction that you get. So with renting, with your standard deduction, you might get $7,500 based on your tax bracket, blah, blah, blah. With owning this home, we're factoring $22,333. That's about a $15,000 savings that you'll get in a tax deduction because the mortgage interest that you pay is tax deductible. So now we've got $20,000 plus about $15,000 that you're saving in the first 5 years. But what about the home appreciation? Although home appreciation isn't guaranteed, just like the rate of return you'll get in the stock market or the interest you're getting on your savings account, on average in the DFW market, our homes have been appreciating at a 7.3%. That's way more aggressive than the norm. A lot of companies are relocating to DFW, so I would say that's a little overestimated. I would rather use a conservative figure like 4% appreciation. 4% appreciation on a $250,000 purchase price is a $10,000 appreciation in your equity. And I usually break that down. That means that your house today is worth $250,000. This time next year, it could be around $260,000. That's the profit or the appreciation. Because again, those are the mortgage lingo terms that Kristin was talking about that people don't understand. And so I showed them over a 5-year time period. Let's just say you earned $10,000. It appreciated by 4%, which would actually be a little bit more than $10,000 every single year, but I like to simplify things. So I'll tell them, imagine $10,000 a year times 5 years, that's 50 grand. So we've got 50 grand in home appreciation. We've got $20,000 in principal reduction, and we've got $15,000 in tax savings. That's the benefit of what this home purchase is going to do for you versus this right here, which is renting over the next 5 years. What do you want to do? I don't say it that aggressively, but even sometimes showing millennials this number here will make them want to vomit. But again, if we just chatter and we say owning is better, owning creates more wealth, owning, that is all words, and it doesn't necessarily resonate with millennials because they want the proof. They're like, show me, back it up by the numbers. And so this is just an easy way where you can articulate the numbers, and they're like, wow, yeah, I'd rather not just throw all this money away.
Kristin, any questions or comments?
Oh, I just love it so much. I mean, this is exactly what people want to see, and it makes it very tangible. And I mean, I loved what you were saying at the beginning, Denise, about that it's not necessarily supposed to be scroll stopping at this point. This is beyond that. And I think, we do need to think about what's scroll stopping in terms of, how are you designing things, creating experiences, things that are aesthetically very visually compelling. But then beyond that, know that millennials are wanting you to get nerdy about stuff. We want the numbers. We want to be able to tangibly see whether, like you said, the proof of what you're talking about. And this is very visual in that sense. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And, you know, I interviewed one of the leaders in branding and marketing, Mark Davison of 1,000 Watts, who's, you know, check out the interview. I'll put a link down below to it. But he's like, people want to know your why, and they want to know your strategy, and they want to know how. Okay, and so I think this really makes the point where you're showing the how in a way that's super unique. Let's face it, most loan officers could not have a rent versus own analysis at the level that you did. Everybody in the mortgage coach community, but you should be creating marketing content, if not weekly, every other week, that it's telling stories, it's showing strategies, showing the how. It is unique. And if you do follow Denise, I mean, she's entertaining with the way she does it. Just her combination of transparency, makes it fun, makes it interesting. But again, you've done it, like, how many TCAs have you done? You've done thousands of total cost analysis in countless videos. So you've gotten really good at it.
Yeah, and you know, it's just real. It's like, so sometimes, you know, you may not have an analysis to do every week. Maybe you don't have those many loans in your pipeline, but you can work up scenarios. And I would, just like to Kristin's point, is people want you to get nerdy. Millennials or not, they appreciate knowing the numbers. And so make a calendar and say, okay, on the first week of every single month, I'm going to post a rent versus own. On the second one, I'm going to do a PMI and no PMI with 5% or 3% down. The third one, I'm going to do a refi analysis. And when you've got those 4 templates, all you're doing every single month is just maybe tweaking different purchase prices, or adding a component of a principal reduction to the loan and what that might do to your home buyer, or a savings appreciation. You know, there's so many different things. And really, I learned when I would go onto the Mortgage Coach YouTube page, and I would learn to see what the top producers are presenting. And that's the great thing, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I literally learned how to do this rent versus own because I watched a YouTube video years ago, and I watched how do you build a rent versus own, and I just followed it. And now it's something that I use in my playbook. And I'll tell you one thing, you show a real estate agent this, and holy cow, it's like, poof. Because think about what you can do for their end client by being able, how many clients do they have in their database that are on the fence about renting versus owning, and they just don't know how to get them up? And they probably would wish that they could have this kind of data and numbers to send to them so that they can get some sort of emotion or some sort of response from these clients to get them off the fence. And so it's not just for clients, it's for your real estate agents as well. And I have a private realtor page. That's something I would definitely recommend for people. Is not all of my content I want available for any and every real estate agent. I've created a certain level of VIP to get into my private group. And in my private group, every single week, I post something specifically. I ask them, what questions, concerns, problems are you guys running into? And I propose a solution on a way that I can help them, or that client, or that seller, even overcome the situation they're in. Like, maybe instead of the price reduction, you offer a closing incentive. And so there's little things like that you can use these systems for, that just make it so powerful. The refi analysis that I did, I posted this in my private group, and I told them, if you have trouble with reaching out to your past clients because you don't know what to say, or maybe that's a new strategy that you're going to start doing, and you have clients you haven't spoken to in 3 to 4 years, what a great time to reach out to them and say, hey, rates are at an all-time low. I want to protect your equity and help your equity grow so you've got more money for your next home purchase. If your interest rate is above a certain point, I'd recommend a home analysis. We do free home analysis for you, or I call it an equity asset review. where we see what your current equity is and if we can save you money. We helped a client refi from an FHA into a conventional and removed $190 a month in PMI. We did their loan in 2016. We should have done that for them 2 years ago because they had equity then, and that's a disservice on us. I know I said this last week, but when I saw Wally's video that he got disciplined on doing annual reviews, I said, okay, 2019, come heck or high water, I'm going to do annual reviews. And I was like, man, I've kind of felt bad because I knew, they didn't know necessarily, but I knew that they had been paying PMI insurance for 2 years at $190 a month because I didn't follow up with them. And that sucks. So, you know, this can be a rewarding business, but you've got to, you know, if you want it to be a business where you're not having to constantly hustle and grind, just take care of the people you already have.
Love that. So Denise, if you could share your screen, let's do the last 2 minutes, just, you know, face-to-face interview. So the ideas I've heard are you've got to show millennials the numbers. You've got to make, you know, first-time home buyers, they don't realize they have enough down payment. They don't realize that the seller can buy out MI. The seller can fund a reno loan. You know, they don't really know tangibly based off of their beliefs on what rates are going to do, their beliefs on what appreciation rates are going to be in their hyper local market. They don't know what it looks like. So we've got to show them in edutainment ways with social media, Instagram, both post and stories, Facebook, post and stories. Denise, Kristin, what are other ideas? Oh, seller buy down websites, you know, have a website that's educational so that people can see the analysis. Scott Nicholson showed on how we can have signs with numbers where we could be building a text database of people that are interested in buying in our market. And like they send a text and they get a total cost analysis that could have a video on it. Huge strategy, Scott. What else, guys?
I really think that from an edutainment standpoint, you have to think about what is going to be scroll stopping, those beautiful images that are well designed, that are lifestyle oriented, and then that lead them into that personalized breakdown of the numbers. And then, you know, so that's one is the visual component. Secondly is the experiential component. So having those mimosas and mortgages and having, you know, parties or whatever is going to be in your wheelhouse, but making it accessible and expanding your network to people that you don't already know. Even going to I'm at a type of a co-working space like a WeWork, where you can host lunch and learn type things or happy hours, but make yourself available, and then you can do these presentations there and have that kind of touch point.
Love that. Scott, any quick comments? Then Denise, we'll give you the last words and we'll wrap up today's call. Remember, everybody, if you've got value, give us a like. If you loved it, give us a love. Scott.
Yeah, I love the Denise's VIP group. I'm actually going to create that and just pull the people that need help or want to be helped and educated, you know, into a private group. The second is, as funny as someone just reached out to me recently, never thought of it, is as some of the millennials have purchased, she's actually running a first-time seller class and getting like 30 to 40 into there, because now that we've taught them how to buy, we didn't teach them how to sell. And she wanted me to come in and help them with a seller buy down if needed be from that seller's perspective.
Ooh, the first-time seller club. I love that. We might have to do a call on that. Love that. The elder millennial first-time seller club.
Mm-hmm.
Denise, any closing thoughts?
No, other than it is definitely all about visual. I think people really, really underestimate the attractiveness of a picture in your social media post, because if you think about social media in the most organic form, and I know we're getting over time, is it's supposed to be organic and you throw it up there, but when you're using social media as a business tool and not a toy, then you do have to be more strategic, and the quality of your picture actually matters. And this experience that you're creating, it does actually matter. It matters more to the millennials, and I think to the men out there, they probably don't get it as much, but just go scrolling and look at social media accounts and look at what these people are doing, and they're spending money for good quality photos, stage photos, and even staged videos where they're actors. They're not actually the real client that may have bought that home, but they filmed this really cool experience of, and they're actors. It's a real life scenario, but the real life scenario isn't as visually attractive or entertaining than hiring and filming something that, you know, to reenact it, basically. So I definitely think that that's what you've got to start incorporating. And if you don't know how to do it, then outsource it. And if you don't have the money to outsource it, then start doing the Facebook Lives where you're showing the numbers, and I promise you'll have the money to eventually be able to do that.
Well, and Denise, I think it's important to note also, you are doing really highly produced, awesome, clean, pro things. And then you're doing really real world, you know, baseball hat on and raw, unpolished, super transparent things. So it's a mix of both. And remember, guys, every single post doesn't need to be scroll stopping. I mean, it's like, it's just that you've got to be strategic, you've got to be intentional, and hopefully the takeaways are, you guys get after it. Just, you know, go after the first time home buyer market, get there first, create the demand, use the total cost analysis, rent versus own, to create that epiphany for people. We are over. Guys, this has been an awesome call. Thank you very much. Remember, guys, if you like it, love it, share it. I do think if you're a branch manager or a leader, make sure your team goes through this content. I think that this is such an important strategy for the referral-based local loan officer that, you know, let's face it, you know, 30-year fixed rate refis is becoming more and more commoditized, but educating first-time home buyers and being the local mayor of educating first-time home buyers in your market, that's not going to go away. That is a strategy that if you crush it with that strategy, your next 10 years will be better than your last 10 years. So I just think this is an important niche, and there are riches and niches for the mortgage coach community to get after. Thanks, you guys. This call is a wrap.